South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Good morning. Welcome in. It is Sports by the Book on a loaded Saturday morning. I'm Jeff Parles, thrilled to be with you. It is Valentine's Day weekend, President's Day weekend. Well, does Valentine's Day get a full weekend? It's really only one day. President's Day weekend's a legitimate thing. Monday's a national holiday. It'll be good to, there'll be a lot of people around this town, more likely than not. I'm Jeff Parles. Happy to be with you as always. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to check in with my buddy Jon Jansen in Philadelphia. We'll see if he's recovered from the Eagles parade. Got some college hoops, some NBA, some baseball thoughts from him at the top of the hour, about 30 minutes from now. But over the next 30 minutes, we got hockey, we got some college hoops, a lot of college hoops to get to here on the show. And we begin, actually, in a spot that we normally don't start on these Saturday mornings, now that the NFL and college football are done. We start with hockey. Yes, Four Nations tournament up in Montreal. Game 2 today. It's Rivalry Saturday. North America battle, Scandinavia battle. We'll start with the later game, the Battle of North America. Canada, the United States of America do battle in Montreal in what is probably going to be the finale of this tournament, realistically speaking. Probably play next week in Boston, more likely than not. Right now, again, the way the point system works, you win a regulation, you get 3 points. You win an overtime, you get 2. You lose an OT, you get 1. If you lose in regulation, you get a goose egg. So right now, the Americans have the most points in this tournament. They have 3. They beat Finland handily 6-1 2 nights ago in Montreal. Canada needed overtime to beat Sweden. And now here in this one, it is a small price lean to Canada here at the South Point. Now, I will tell you right now, this is the South Point is the only book right now that has Canada favored. So if you like the Americans, come on down and get the United States of America, get the Stars and Stripes before it moves. If you like Canada, the best number, by the way, is at the Superbook. They're minus 105 both sides on this matchup. Total of 6. Based off watching those first 2 games, look, the Canadian speed is unbelievable. I mean, you look at that opening line, you look at that first line for Canada, I mean, You got Marner, you got McKinnon, and you got McDavid all together. Oh, my goodness. I mean, come on now. Sidney Crosby still can play, obviously. You have Stone up there. That team is unbelievably loaded. Now, the question with the Canadians is Jordan Binnington going to hold up? That was the question going into this tournament. A little bit surprised, at least on my end, that Aiden Hill isn't getting the nod over Binnington in this tournament, but Binnington gets the nod. On the American end of things, as we know, Connor Hellebuck in net for Team USA. Question always with Hellebuck, great regular season guy, has not performed great in postseason games in the NHL. This is more equivalent to a postseason game, more like an Olympics, more so than anything. If you look at this matchup here today, I think the total's spot on at 6, juiced over. I don't think you're going to see 6.5, other than maybe a 6.5 minus 25 the other way. I would be very cautious of betting the over in this game. I just wonder if this plays more like, now I understand it's a group stage game, not a final of this tournament. I just wonder if this plays more like a game 7 type, just because of the rivalry here, where this is a lot tighter than you normally would see. So I would, if you can find a 6.5 minus 20, I'd probably go under that. But I'd be very careful of laying the juiced over here. On the side, this is as coin flippy as you get, as you know. These are the two best teams in this tournament. But I do think it comes down to the goaltending here. It is a lean to the Americans, just because I trust Connor Hellebuck more than I trust Jordan Binnington. Now, if it ends up being Hill and net for the Canadians, maybe this is a little bit different. But I will be on the Americans, especially if at the minus 105 price. Much better to be looking at the USA on that. I would not lay USA as a favorite. If you want to lay them as a pick, no problem. I would not go higher to minus 105 on either side in this game. That's how tight this is with the Americans and the Canadians tonight in the Four Nations in Montreal. Sweden and Finland, the other matchup, not much to be said here. The Finns looked fine for about a period and a half against Team USA, and it really got dominated the back end 30 in that matchup on Thursday night. So, best number in the market on the Swedes is here at minus 210. Superbook, again, with the best number on the Finns, they're at $2. They're minus 230 on Sweden, so a little bit of a difference of number there. This would only be a look at the Swedes on the puck line, laying a goal and a half at plus 135. That would be the only way I would do it. I think the Finns are pretty clearly the weakest of the four teams in this tournament, well on their way to finishing last. If you're the Swedes, look, there is a path. There's absolutely a path to making the next round. It's there. Have an opportunity here to get in via tiebreakers with the title. There is a shot. Now, granted, Canada's head-to-head win over Sweden will hurt them, but if Sweden wins a regulation, Canada loses to the United States in regulation, there's a shot. Or if Canada beats Team USA, period, here, there will be an opportunity for the Swedes. Because if Sweden wins and the U.S. goes to overtime and loses, they're tied in points. Or Team USA could be behind Sweden going into the final matchup in Boston 2 days from now. So path is there for the Swedes, more so than the Finns, in order to get through in this tournament to the final. Again, it's only two teams obviously get to the final. The only way that it works. That's where we're at right now on all these. All right, let's go to college. Basketball here today. Let's go there. Starting off today in Cincinnati, Ohio. DePaul and Xavier kicks us off here today on the show for college hoops. Not the most exciting of matchups. It's been eons. DePaul has had one conference road win in the last 4 years. And it came earlier this year against Georgetown. So they are not good in conference play on the road, as we know. Now, they played Marquette pretty tough in the middle of the week, only lost by 10. Weird game, 72-possession game that only was a final of 68-58. So the offenses were not good, and DePaul's was pitiful at .81 per possession, which is bad, very bad. The Musketeers of Xavier, again, just kind of middling. They're 15-10. They're 7-7 in conference play. Just not much to write home about this Musketeer team. Now, the question in this game more so than anything, because this side number at 12.5 has not moved. The total's been the big mover in this game, from as high as $147 all the way down to 142.5. I would not touch the total now at 142.5. Would not want to go over it. Definitely don't want to go under a bad number by, 4.5 points. 4.5 point difference from the peak. Don't want to go over that. From when those opened here this morning at the South Point about 5 a.m. So the question more so than anything is, do you want to lay double digits with Xavier against anyone in conference play that isn't Seton Hall at this point? Their 2 double-digit wins in conference have come against Seton Hall. They beat them by 22. And this Blue Demon team, they beat them by 14 back on January 11th. It would only be a look at Xavier here. Really would like to see if you get an in-game number sub 10. Then you can go in on the Musketeers. But that would be the only look that I would look at here for this one with Xavier and DePaul here, right at the top of the hour at 9 a.m. The College Station next. Arkansas on the road at Texas A&M. So those 8.5s that were available last night at some shops are gone. Those are gone. Not much of a shock there. It's 8. It's basically 8 like a blanket. There's 1 7.5 out there. These totals have been very active here at the South Point here today. Open 141, down to 139.5. Now back up the ladder to 142. Now, Arkansas, we talked about a lot on the show yesterday afternoon with Vinny and Chris. Super talented team, as we know. Calipari, we know, can still attract talent to his teams. The question is with Cal, does he have any ability left to coach? Which early in non-conference, I mean, they were 0-5, and they looked like they had not been coached at all. 1-6 after a loss to Oklahoma. But that Winter Rupp Arena has kind of turned things a little bit. They're 4-7 in the league now. 3 of their last 4 they've won. The only loss was against Alabama, which there's no shame in that. I, again, have the Tide as my number 2 power-rated team, but with Janae Broom of Auburn banged up, we'll get to that later. Bama ahead of Auburn at the moment for me. This is a stretch now for Arkansas, where they're 4-7 in conference. If they get to 7-10 in the SEC, or 8-10, I should say, which would mean 4-3 the last 7. That's probably enough to get an at-large bid. Probably. With the strength of the SEC, the fact that Arkansas has a big win in non-con over Michigan. They do, though, in this 3-game stretch where they go at A&M, at Auburn, and they get a second crack at Mizzou, who whipped them pretty good earlier in Fayetteville this go-around. They got to beat one of those clear top 6 seeds in the tournament teams. Where A&M right now, Lenardi's got him as a 2. Auburn's the number 1 overall seed in all bracketologies. And Mizzou's either a 5 or a 6, depending on where you look right now. They got to get one of these games. Now, I think it's too much of a task to ask Arkansas to win this game outright as a 3-1 underdog at A&M. But there's more than enough talent on the Arkansas end of things to stay in this game. I like them to cover the 8. Now, the whole key of this game is the rebounding. Period. Texas A&M, as we brought up on the show yesterday, is number 1 in the country of rebounding their own misses. They rebound 42.7% of their own misses. Numbers via KenPom. Arkansas is pretty good at keeping teams off the offensive glass. They're terrible on their own offensive glass. They only rebound 28% of their own misses. That's not good. That's in the bottom 100. They are 75th overall with offensive rebound against rate. So they keep their opponents off the glass. 27.8% of the opponent's misses are rebounded by the offense. That's good. That's a good number. That's top 75 in the country. If they can keep A&M around 33%, 32%, something in that pocket, Arkansas should be able to cover this game. A&M, as good as they are, and as good in clutch as Wade Taylor is, they are not an efficient shooting team. Far from it. 288th in the country in effective field goal percentage, 299th in three-point percentage, 255th in two-point percentage. They're also terrible at the free throw line. They're 300th in the country at 68.3% free throw-wise. So A&M's not going to beat you by making shots. They're going to beat you by cleaning their own glass and scoring off of that. So that's the key for Arkansas. I do like them to cover the 8. I think that's a good number. You can take it with the Hogs. Wish you're getting the hook still, but 8 still good on that with Arkansas. Let's go to Tallahassee. Florida State hosting Clemson. This number is skyrocketed, even though it's not at its peak right now here at the South Point. So open 3.5. Up to as high as 5, now back to 4.5, just as the show started. Total from 143 to 142.5. Now, Clemson had a pretty darn good letdown spot potentially during the week against North Carolina after beating Duke, and they clocked UNC. Beat them by 20. Game wasn't even that competitive. So there's not much really look ahead or anything like that for the Clemson end of things. 5, I think, is too steep. It would be a play on Florida State. I would not go anything shorter than that. Total's good at 142.5. I know Clemson plays slow, but Florida State plays quick. They're probably going to, game in Tallahassee, probably going to be played closer to Florida State's tempo, more so than Clemson's tempo. Moving along to the A-10, a team that is currently in the top of that league. Actually, no, we'll start there, actually. Sorry about that. We'll start in the SoCon. Furman and UNC Greensboro. See, sometimes reading my own list can be a little bit difficult here, guys. Furman, 3.5 now, so it's a little more complicated here. There are some 3s. Go make sure you seek out the 3s on this. At 3, Paladins at home is good. I would not go north of 1 possession. Now, if you look at the KenPom numbers on these two teams, Furman, 158 in KenPom. UNC Greensboro, the second best team in the SoCon at 133. Only the defending champion, Samford, better. Now, the big question mark of this game, and this total of 139.5 may also be a little high. Both of these teams want to slow this thing down. There are no 140s available. There were some earlier in the day. But at 3, I like Furman. I think this is a good spot at home. Furman's been much better at home. Their only loss in conference is to Chattanooga, who's also highly looked at in this league. But I like them at home. Lay the 3 against UNC Greensboro. These teams even enough. And again, Greensboro has really gone down in competition these last 3 games. I think the pop back up in competition might hurt them here today against Furman. Now to the A-10, St. Joe's and George Mason. So George Mason right now, actually, if you're looking at the A-10, VCU to me is clearly the best team, but George Mason's 11-1 in league. They would get the auto bid based off of right now regular season play. They have the 4th longest winning streak in the country, 10 in a row. Right now, only Akron, Drake, and Towson have longer winning streaks. Now they play St. Joe's. The last loss for George Mason was on January 4th against Rhode Island. Now you get a top 100 KenPom St. Joe team that I think has been a little bit of an underachiever in A-10 play. I would have expected more than 1 game over 500 for them. They've won 2 in a row. They're both at home. Now going on the road. Philly to Fairfax is not a huge trip. About a 3-hour bus ride, give or take. I like St. Joe's plus the points. Now, there's going to be an opportunity to fade George Mason. Now, the question is it today or is it 1 week from today when they play VCU in Richmond? I'm curious to see if that number against VCU ends up being too bloated and making this the better opportunity. Now, if George Mason played VCU like on Wednesday this week, I would say this is a pure look-ahead spot. But because they have a whole week, I don't think it's as big of a look-ahead spot as you would normally think for a team playing. Again, George Mason is the number one seed right now in the A-10, but really, VCU is the only team in this league with a possibility of getting an at-large bid. Now, I don't know if VCU would. Their non-con was pretty weak, but they are a top 40 KenPom team. It would be St. Joe's here in this game. That would be the only one I'd look at here for this one. This one gets going. This is a 9:30 Pacific start for this one. There's some 5 that also just popped into the market. Maybe you look at that on St. Joe's. All right, Wisconsin-Purdue. A good game in the Big Ten. So, Wisconsin 5.5-point underdogs in this one at Mackey Arena. Very difficult place to play, as we know. Purdue, right now in KenPom, by margin, other than their opponent today, these two teams are two top teams in KenPom, number 8 and number 11 in those markets. Everybody else is in the 20s except for Maryland right now, 17. Purdue, we know great offensively still. Again, defensively still top 30, still good. Wisconsin top 10 offense, 35th in defense in KenPom. The question here more so than anything is going to be, how does Wisconsin do against that elite 3-point defense of Purdue? Purdue is top 30 defense. They're 29th in the country defending the 3. Wisconsin is 63rd in the country shooting the 3. Now, what Purdue does struggle with is they are bad at defending the 2. They are 242nd defending the 2. Wisconsin shooting the 2 is 58%. By the way, Wisconsin, best free throw shooting team in the country, 84%. They are the best free throw shooting team in the country by 3 whole percentage points over UTSA. Kind of your classic Wisconsin team. So this would be a lean to the dog. Now, the question is, more so than anything, Wisconsin's been pretty good on the road this year in conference play. There are only 3 conference losses on the road. Champaign, tough place to play against a very good Illinois team. Pauley Pavilion by 2. UCLA, as we dictated yesterday, they got their first win of the year west of the Mississippi and west of the state of not west. Their first win east of the Mississippi and their first win east of the state of Arizona. So they've struggled outside the West Coast, Pacific time zone, Mountain Standard time zone. But boy, this feels like this should have came closer to 4, 3.5 here. If we see 6, it's definitely a play on Wisconsin. We'd love to see that, but 5.5 is still good on Bucky Badger in this one. All right, let's go to Knoxville next. Tennessee hosting Vanderbilt, 12.5 on this game right now. Revenge spot for Tennessee. Of course, the Vols were stunned by this Vanderbilt team back in January. Memorial Gymnasium's a funky place, guys. Funky place. Last time out for the Vols, they get beat by Kentucky for a second time this year, lose by 11. But this is the thing with Tennessee, and this is why I don't think Tennessee is a real threat to win a national championship this year, to probably make a second weekend, but they are prime to be upset potentially earlier than they should be because of their offense. In that game against Kentucky, they shot 16% from 3. They were 55% inside the arc. But they take too many threes for a team that is not a great 3-point shooting team. This is not like a year ago where, look, last year they were highly efficient on offense because they were quicker on offense and they also had an elite scorer that could bail them out and connect. They don't have that this year. They don't have that, hey, give the ball to this guy and go get me some buckets. They don't have that. Dalton Knecht was a special player last year at Tennessee. Vandy, I mean, they were a mess the last few years. I mean, last year they were 9-23. If it wasn't for Missouri's offer in the league, we would look at Vandy as a complete disaster. Fire Jerry Stackhouse, bring in Mark Byington, and Byington's done an amazing job. This team, more likely than not, is going to the NCAA tournament. They have enough quality wins already. They have 2 high-end quad 1 wins against Kentucky and Tennessee. It's a lot to ask them to go on the road and be competitive in this game. Now, 12.5 is a lot. If you get a full 13, obviously even more. But this would probably be a stay away for me. Asking Tennessee to cover margin is tough, but asking Vandy to go on the road and be competitive against a team that they already beat, that Tennessee's clearly better than them, boy, that's a tough spot for Vandy. So we're going to stay out of that. We're going to stay out of that game right now with Vandy and Tennessee. All right, Wofford and Samford up next. Back to the SoCon. Samford's the best team in that league. I understand this is a tough spot. Wofford is not a pushover by any means. Samford has lost 2 in a row. They lost to ETSU, and they got beat pretty handily at home by Chattanooga by 14 earlier in the week. The fall out of the top 100 in Ken Palm. It's a good spot to stop the bleeding, though. I like Samford minus the 1 in this game against Wofford. The big question is always, will Samford be able to shoot the three-pointer at their high mark like they do? Wofford, not a good defensive team against the three. They're 241st in the country against defending the three-point line. That's a good sign for Buckyball and Samford. So we'll lay the 1 on the road with the Bulldogs in this one against the Terriers. Going to the CAA next, William and Mary. Take it on. Drexel here is down to 2.5. I actually like this even at 3 on William and Mary. Now, the Tribe, their analytics, not particularly great. They're 219th in the country, even though right now they are currently 5th in the CAA or even tied for 3rd. They're 5th by tiebreak. I don't think this is a great matchup for Drexel because Drexel wants to play slow. We've been on Drexel a bunch in this conference play this year, but Drexel does not want to run. Now, the first matchup between these teams, Drexel handled William and Mary by 20 in Philadelphia. Revenge, now on the road, and I expect William and Mary's tempo to win out here in this game. By the way, Drexel's also lost 2 straight, including a loss against Hampton earlier in the week, a game they probably shouldn't have lost. So I like William and Mary, latest 2.5 in this one. A little bit surprised that the early action on this one has come on Drexel. All right, let's go to State College. Penn State taking on Washington. Penn State is in a total funk right now. Looked like they had a backdoor shot of making the NCAA tournament going into conference play. I mean, they were 12-2 after beating Northwestern on January the 2nd. They had a win over Purdue. All right, vibes are good in State College. They've won 1 conference game since January 2nd to beat Rutgers. That's it. Since then, they are 1-10 in conference play, and they have fallen off the cliff. No NCAA tournament unless if they get a miracle run in Indianapolis this year for Penn State. And quite frankly, they might not even make it because the bottom 3 do not even go to the Big Ten tournament anymore. It's only 15 go. So right now, these 2 teams that are in this game, Washington and Penn State, they might not even go to the Big Ten tournament. By the way, I don't like that. I know there's 18 teams in a conference, but everyone should have an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament. That's just the way it is for me, I would say, at least in these big conferences. 6 is the number. I would lay it with the home team. Again, Washington, as we've talked about, even with that win at Minnesota last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I should say, they've been brutal away from Seattle. I mean, they've been bad, period, in Big Ten play. But away from Seattle, their only win is that game at the Barn. Yeah, they did neutral site games, but again, those aren't pure road games. Those games were in Palm Springs. They did beat Colorado State and Santa Clara, who are both top 100 Ken Palm teams. But this would be only Penn State here. This feels like a good spot to stop the slide if you're the Nittany Lions in that one. All right, let's go to another big one here. Houston and Arizona. 2.5 now on this game. This game's in Tucson. Now, I liked Houston at 1.5. I still like them at 2.5. I think this is a pretty monster coaching mismatch with Sampson against Tommy Lloyd. And also, too, this feels like a bad matchup for Arizona, where Houston's defense should be able to totally take Arizona's offense out of their own rhythm. The question is always with Houston, are we going to get enough points? Are they going to be able to score? Arizona's a legit top 20 defense. This might be a good under, actually. If you can get a little higher than a 137.5, that's here at the South Point. Right now, that is the market high. It is the market like a blanket. I think 137.5 is pretty good still if you want to go under in this one. Georgetown and Butler, real quick, 3.5. Numbers right. Would only be a take of the favorite here, lay the favorite, but not very strong on that one. Baylor and West Virginia, 8.5 on the Mountaineers. On the road is the dog. Boy. West Virginia wants to grind you. They want to play these games slow. They want to go defense first. Total's gone from 136 to 135. Would only be a look at the under, but not very strong because of the move on this one right here on a total down from 136. Virginia Tech. We'll go there next. In-state rivalry game in Blacksburg. Va Tech is a 2-point favorite right now, and I would lay it with Virginia Tech. This is, look, neither of these teams are any good. That's the easiest thing to say here. Neither of these teams are any good. But you look at Va Tech, you have home court. This game is going to be super, super slow. Neither of these offenses are particularly good. It would be a look to Virginia Tech here on this one. Connecticut and Seton Hall. Connecticut's a 14-point favorite in this game against the Pirates. Seton Hall's the worst Power 5 team in the country at this point. If you want to lay 14, I don't have a problem with that. But again, tread carefully when you're laying this big of a number in conference play, regardless of how big of a matchup it may appear on paper. Central Florida and Colorado in Boulder. Colorado's now a 1.5-point favorite in this game. If this gets to 2, I would take with Central Florida. You could also take money line as well. They're just better. Knights are just better than the Buffs are. Now, it is a little bit of an advantage because this is a weird travel spot. Basically, as far travel as you can go on Orlando in this league. Yeah, you can go a little bit further north and go to Salt Lake or Provo, but this is going to elevation. Colorado, by the way, 0-13 in conference play. If they lose this game, they're probably losing out in the Big 12 here back in the league. You don't want to go 0-20. You don't want to go 0-20. That's all I'll say on that. Oklahoma State hosting Texas Tech. Texas Tech had their no-show in the middle of the week, even though they won in double overtime against Arizona State. 9's a lot. 9's a lot to lay with Texas Tech. So, boy, if it came in 8, 7.5, I'd lay it with Texas Tech, but not strong enough to lay 9 with the Red Raiders in this one. Missouri on the road at Georgia. This is a good game. Again, there's not many bad games in the SEC at this point. Bulldogs, last team in, according to Lenardi yesterday. They need this game desperately against Mizzou. Markets bet Missouri. I was 1.5 on the early numbers here at the South Point. It's been pretty stable after I won and moved quickly to 2.5. Hasn't moved since. Would only be a look at the underdog for me on this game. Just, again, big spot for Georgia. Mizzou, nice little bounce back after the back-to-back losses last week. Really doing what they needed to do in the middle of the week, and they put it on OU, beating them by 24 at Mizzou Arena. By the way, Mizzou gets Alabama in the middle of the week. It's kind of a weird spot here today against Georgia. By the way, that might be a good bet for Mizzou with Alabama coming up. That might be a great look-ahead spot, or letdown spot, especially if Bama wins today against Auburn. Skipping out, I'll hit Stanford Duke here real quick. Duke, 18.5-point favorites. They bet Stanford from 20 to 18.5. That 20 was good. Getting a little close here now. I could see an argument for the over in this game, though. Obviously, Duke will slow it down. Great on both offense and defense. Stanford, real quick, not a pushover. They're better on offense than defense. Now, the big question is, will you have enough tempo to get a game in the 140s where both teams want to play this about 64, 65 possessions here on this one. All right, skipping ahead to Campbell and Delaware. and then we'll take a break and we'll get our guy Jon Jansen, and we'll all give our thoughts on Auburn, Alabama together. Campbell and Delaware. So this has moved up. Delaware opened 2.5 in most shops, down to 3.5. Boy, I don't love this more than one possession. Now, if it gets back to 3, I'd lay it with the Blue Hens. I think this is a very good spot to go against Campbell, who has been playing pretty darn well of late, actually. They had a 7-game win streak that got snapped on Thursday in Boston against Northeastern. But this does not feel like a great spot again. Second game of a 3-game road trip. Probably bounce back against A&T on Thursday of next week. But I would be a look at Delaware if it gets back to 3. Don't want to go north of that 3 in this one. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, Jon Jansen in Philadelphia. We'll see if he's recovered from the parade. We'll get his thoughts on Auburn, Alabama. We'll get his thoughts on the Big East. Also, even ask him some baseball thoughts, since Chris and Company put season win totals up for the Phillies and the rest of Major League Baseball when we get back. Sports by the Book on a Saturday morning.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here on a Saturday morning. I'm Jeff Parles, and now joining us, Fox Sports, the Gambler's Own in Philadelphia, my good friend Jon Jansen joins us right now. JJ, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff Parles. Good morning as well to the city of Philadelphia. Hopefully everybody stayed safe and also responsible last night.
Oh, I don't know about that second part, but...
Nah, probably not. Not for what I was saying.
Yeah,
no.
I don't know about that second part, but it's again the good week for you guys in that city, to say the very least. Second Super Bowl crown in less than a decade now, and it could be a nice little sustained run there for the Eagles. But I'm not going to talk to you about that just yet. I want to get your thoughts first, because I know you're a big hoops guy across the board. Alabama and Auburn, number 1 versus number 2 today. Janae Broom has not been the same guy since coming back from this ankle injury. Right now, John, it's 1.5 across the board on this 1v2 matchup, with the Tide favorite at home in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Auburn. I like the Auburn Tigers a lot. I love their toughness on defense, especially. It's a great offensive team as well. But yeah, there just seems to be a little bit more toughness there with me. Alabama, I love. Like, obviously, they have this like run and shoot style that they have that works well. But sometimes it's not my favorite thing in the world. So I think in a game like this where it's going to be tight, I think Auburn, especially defensively, ends up being, to me, more favorable in a matchup here. But I'm expecting still some points. I'm expecting both teams to offensively to be good. But again, just the toughness for Auburn, I think I want to lean on a little bit more here.
Total's only 172.5 in this game, 172 in some other spots. I will save my pick for later, but I kind of tipped my hand yesterday of who I liked in this game. We might be rolling with someone here today, if you get my drift there, John. So, look at that. See, very good. Very good. Very good, Drew. Very good. Vinny's not even here.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Well done. Well done, Carl.
So, John, Villanova's in action. Of course, your station is the home of Villanova in the Philadelphia area. Cats got a gigantic win earlier in the week against St. John's. They needed it if they're going to make any sort of push towards a potential at-large NCAA tournament bid, which still might be tough with what happened to them in non-con. But they're 2.5-point favorites today against Providence. I didn't have any plays on this game, so I'm curious your thoughts since you're around the team a lot more than I am.
Yeah, consistency has been one thing Villanova has kind of been lacking this year. They at times have been getting like very good play from guys like Wooga Poplar, Tyler Perkins, who are both playing well right now, Jordan Longino, and obviously Eric Dixon's been great. So like they've been getting some production from those guys, but it just never seems all that consistent. Defensively, they've been fine, probably not as good as they have been in previous years. Their offensive games have gotten a little bit better, but I don't think it's as consistent, especially late game consistency. It feels like, I don't know why, but every time you get to the U4 media timeout, Villanova just struggles late in games. Now, they struggled late against St. John's, but were able to come up with a big shot, that three from Tyler Perkins. So as long as they stay away from kind of those things, that maybe they can string together some wins. But I know initially after that St. John's game, you look at Providence, I know not very good, but still, you're on the road in the Big East, and every matchup's a tough one, especially after coming off of a win like that. So I just feel like it's a really tough spot. This is a game, probably just as big as St. John's. Like St. John's opens the door to probably start having these discussions again about potentially Nova getting into the bubble. But in order to do that, you have to continue to string together wins and not have the letdown losses. And that's kind of what's been the Achilles heel for Villanova. It's the letdown losses, and they've had it in non-conference, as you just mentioned, Columbia being probably the worst one.
Yeah.
But they've had a few of these spots where they just let games slip away, and they can't do that against Providence after what was probably their best win of the season against St. John.
Yeah, Virginia wasn't good either, and now one in that neutral site. At least St. Joe's is like a reasonably good team, even though getting the A-10's well on their way to only
Big Five games.
Yeah, look, hey, you can get some weird results in those Big Five games, as we know, John. So, it's a weird day in the Big East because, that's the most competitive game. Marquette's off today. Creighton plays St. John's tomorrow. So I'll just ask you real quick. We don't have any lines yet on that Creighton-St. John's game, but what would you look at in that one potentially? Of course, Creighton beat St. John's on New Year's Eve earlier this year by a point in Omaha. This game in New York, of course.
Yeah, again, with college basketball, it's always about spots for me, and this feels like such a great spot for St. John's. Coming off that loss to Villanova, they have an opportunity here to get a top 25 win against Creighton. Creighton's been playing better, too, so I think Creighton's getting him a kind of a good time here, but also it's at Madison Square Garden. It's back at home after being on the road. I just think the spot seems to fit very well for St. John's here, and I do like them. And even in a loss to Villanova, you could tell, like that's a very well-coached team. They probably got back into that game when they shouldn't have. They went on, I think, a 14-0 run to take the lead from Villanova late in that game. So they played well. It's just Big East basketball. Villanova does have some talented players, and Villanova hit a really good shot at the end of the game. But I came away, I haven't come away impressed at all by the Big East watching all of these games, but I did come away very, very impressed with St. John's, especially, again, I just think they're so well coached. They're so good defensively, and they've been able to find some offense here and there. But I think it's a very tough defense, tough team, and I think that's going to be a tough place to play in the Garden against Creighton.
I'm going to ask you one more thing, college hoops wise, and then I just want to move to a different subject real quick. So Chris and company have a prop up here. The SEC versus the field to win a national championship in college hoops. Minus 165 on the field, plus 145 on the SEC. Would you take that plus money on the SEC with all those high-end teams that you're getting, John?
No, I wouldn't. I hate to say I like fading, these conferences we think are, the best heading into a tournament. And it's very clear the SEC is the best conference in college basketball right now. But that always doesn't lend itself to like tournament time and going, oh yeah, the SEC is going to dominate. I always feel like when they get into the tournament and these teams lose, and it's not to say the SEC will be bad. It's just that it's the nature of the tournament, and there's always going to be something random. So yes, we have two teams from the SEC at the top, and we have multiple teams that are very, very good in the SEC. But I just would like to fade that. I don't know. In my head, just the probability and the numbers of it and what we've seen in the past in situations like this, that it just feels like the better number is taking the field there.
Jon Jansen with us right now, Fox Sports The Gambler in Philadelphia. John, I just want to go real quick because Chris and company put these numbers up yesterday. Major League Baseball win totals came out, and they're all even basically in the National League East. 92 in Atlanta, 91.5 on Philadelphia, 91.5 on the Mets. 3-horse race in that division. Atlanta's the slightest of favorites right now in the division, all available at plus prices, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets here at the South Point. What's your early handicap in the National League East, which looks like, again, to be a bear, especially with how good those top 3 teams are?
Definitely. And, the Braves last year, a lot of injuries, just a lot of weird things. And it happens every once in a while. But I think teams come back better from those seasons. I love the Braves this year. I'm probably going to go over on their win total. I'm probably going to take them to win the National League East. It might be one of my teams in the National League. The Phillies are the team I'm probably most concerned about. Now, the Mets made that run last year, so maybe they end up taking a step back, even though they made a big signing in the offseason, obviously. But I find the Phillies pitching to maybe be a little bit lacking. Bullpen depth, especially, to be a little bit lacking. Their lineup's been good. I think really good at times, but there's guys that are slowing down a little bit. There's a chance for potential disaster for a Nick Cassiano season. It looked like it last year, and he was able to get better in the second half of the season, got much better in the second half of the season. But there's signs that he's probably not getting better. Trey Turner, really good player, and I love Trey Turner as a player, but I feel like you're just going to need more from these guys, and I just don't know if you're going to get it. So I'm concerned that the Phillies didn't do enough in the offseason. I'm concerned that they're kind of running it back for a third time, and if you keep running it back like that, and you've gotten some odd performances that have been really lifting your team up. I think Jeff Hoffman being one of them. Now he's gone, but there's just been some guys that have played over expectation at times, and I just don't know how long you can kind of bank on that happening over and over again. And Dombrowski we trust because I think he's done a great job, but this seems like maybe a down year for the Phillies, or at least I'm going into it expecting a little bit of a down year.
Well, I think more so than anything, I think their bullpen, which was a massive strength, obviously, the last few years, it's not as good. It's just not as good when you lose pieces like they've lost. Obviously,
and even their starting rotation, I think there's question.
Yeah, I mean, look, Hoffman goes to Toronto. Obviously, Strom is still there, but again, I don't think that bullpen is quite as good. And look, Jesus Luzardo is a good pickup, though. That was a that was a good pickup, and you got 3 good lefties at the back end of the rotation. That is going to be a little bit difficult, but I'm with you. I hate to bring up the end of the I don't hate to bring it up, but not good for you. But the end of the Rollins, Howard, Utley era, it kind of had the same trajectory, right? Where they win it all in 2008, they lose in the World Series in 2009, then they lose NLCS, and then Howard ruptures the Achilles, and we all knew the run was over right then and there in 2011, even though I still think that was their best team, even though they didn't get out of the first round. But regardless, it kind of has that feel again, and you're right. I think it just, if you keep running back with the same team, you're not likely to bust through when you're running back a third straight time without adding small pieces that are better than Max Kepler. No disrespect to Max Kepler.
Yeah, right. And that I think was a solid pickup, but they needed much more than that. But you're right. It just feels like, other than possibly Bryce Harper, just because he's a freak and could have an amazing season at any time, it just feels like for most of these guys, their best seasons are behind them. I don't know if their best seasons are moving forward. So they'll still be good. I still think they're going to get good production out of Trey Turner, but is Trey Turner going to have career best years this year and moving forward? I have no idea, and I don't think so. So that's where I have a tough time with the Phillies, that you've run it back so much. And look, they bought a lot of guys in free agency. They went after top guys. So they were able to kind of inject life into this organization. And it's been great to see. And I think it's helped overall, because now I think they are doing better in the minor league system as well. There's an overall healthiness to the organization that wasn't there since after 2011. So I think that this is still, though, not the best play. They're not like the Braves, where they're just retooling, figuring things out. There's another guy waiting to take over if somebody else fails. The Phillies don't have that. It really is reliant on just like a handful of players to continue to have these great seasons when, again, for the most part, I think a lot of their great seasons are behind them.
John, before I let you go, NBA real quick. What's the finals when this is all said and done? And do the Sixers make the playoffs?
I can answer the second one easily. No. They stink. Paul George isn't good anymore. Maxi's playing great basketball, but you need other guys to be healthy. So you need Joel Embiid to be healthy. You need Paul George to be healthy, and those guys just can't. And even when they have been on the floor together, at times it's looked good, but also they've also lost a lot of games for the beat on the floor. So they can't stay healthy. They're just not good enough. And now for the teams in the finals, I find that one fascinating, especially in the West. I am kind of keeping my eye on, and I know maybe there are some other teams in the West you should look at, like Oklahoma City's having a great season, Memphis, and even Denver, because they still have Jokic and great players. But I am kind of keeping my eye on the Lakers and with this Luka experiment. But it does take time. I know these things do. So in one season and like half a season, is it going to immediately come together? I don't know, but LeBron has been able to kind of get these things together along quickly. Now he is older. He's in his 40s now. So I don't know if he's able to kind of make that happen, but it's more of his leadership and his basketball IQ that I think is able to get these teams together quickly. And Luka, as long as he stays healthy, he's capable of taking a team to a final. So I'm keeping my eye on the Lakers. Not to say that would be my pick right now. I'd probably just go with Oklahoma City because they've been so great. But on the East side of things, it's really just Boston. I kind of do like how the Knicks have been playing. Obviously, the Cavaliers have a really good team, and it feels like they've just been getting better and better over the past couple of seasons. But Boston, still, to me, every time I watch them, that just feels like the team to beat. They're in cruise control in the regular season, but once the playoffs come around, it feels like that team's going to be very hard to beat in a 7-game series.
Well, we apologize in advance to Oklahoma City and Boston bettors because I have the same final entering the All-Star break personally. I mean, OKC to me,
that's never good. If we're on the same bet, same team, that's not good.
OKC is clearly the best team in the NBA to me. And look, as good as Cleveland has been, I need to see them beat Boston before I believe it. That's just all it is. I know that's maybe unfair, but that's where I'm at on the Celtics, and I just don't think the Knicks can beat the Celtics in a 7-game series, as much as I would love to see that happen.
It's hard for me to see many teams beat Boston in a 7-game series.
By the way, the Eastern Conference, we're back in the mid-early 2000s again, where we have, technically the top 6 seeds are over 500, but then after that, oh my goodness, the play-in tournament is just an abomination.
And when you say mid to the 2010s, what you mean is like the Sixers in that era. Constantly a little bit over or a little bit under 500, making the playoffs as a 7 or 6 seed, and then losing the first round and not doing that.
Hey, they upset the Bulls that one year because Rose's knee blew up on him. I mean, that happened.
Sure, that happened.
That happened.
Yes, Doug Collins and Andre Iguodala were elated. It was great. Yes. Oh my gosh, I hate to put it all on Andre, but the Iguodala era is what you're talking about here.
Oh man,
Yeah.
He's Jon Jansen, Fox Sports The Gambler, J Jansen 34 on the tweets. John, pleasure. We'll talk again soon. All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we won't bother with a break. We can hop right back into the college hoops here today before we say goodbye. Going to Alabama and Auburn one more time. I am on Alabama. I do think Alabama right now, if you made me pick at this very moment, said, Jeff, who's going to win the national championship in college basketball? I would take the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Auburn, if you look at the numbers, Auburn is without a shadow of a doubt the best team in the country. I don't think there's much of an argument on that when they are 100% healthy. When Broome is right, they're the best team in the country. But there are two things that concern me with Auburn long term. A, Broome's health. That concerns me today, too. And B, and we saw it last week against Florida, when things don't go perfect, they're not as mentally tough as some of these other high-end teams. Because they had multiple chances to get back in that game in Florida, and they never got back in it. So I'm a little bit concerned about that on their mental toughness end of things. Bama, veteran-laden, guard-centric, yet are very reliant on the three. But as much as I like Bruce Pearl as a coach, I think Nate Oates is the better basketball coach. And I like Alabama here today. Home court matters in this game. See if this gets back to $1.20 on the money line. Lay it with Bama. But that minus 125 is probably good. You know what? It is good. You can lay it with Alabama on that front for sure. All right, Cincinnati and Iowa State. I don't have a play here, but I wanted to bring this up because Iowa State is just kind of really now a team that I think is going to be forgotten in the national landscape because they had a little bad streak. Still a national championship caliber team. Still a national because you got great guards. You got great guards on that Iowa State team. I mean, that's really the difference. Like, when you have a backcourt of Gilbert and Curtis Jones, you got a shot. The team's really, really good. And Lipsey, of course, at the point guard position. But don't forget about them in the national landscape, guys. Don't forget about Iowa State as a potential Final Four national title threat. To the Egg Bowl on the hardwood. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. This number's not large enough. I like Ole Miss at home. Mississippi State, now, they're making the NCAA tournament because of the strength of the SEC. I don't think they're that good. Hubbard is an amazing watch, fun guy to watch, great offensive player. I just don't think they're that. Their defense is not as good as I would have expected them to be. Yeah, they're top 50 in the country, but I thought they were going to be better on defense, and it's kind of shown up in the SEC. And by the way, this is a brutal stretch they're on right now where they go Florida, or they went Florida earlier in the week, Ole Miss, A&M. But hey, you get those type of stretches in the SEC. But we're down to 3 in this game now. Even better on Ole Miss here. Check the injury report. Just make sure nothing's popped there on the Ole Miss side. But I like Ole Miss. I think that number that 4 was still not enough on the Ole Miss side. ACC. It's a big game here in the ACC with SMU and Wake. If there's going to be any weirdness of potential NCAA tournament teams getting in, these are two that could get in if the committee gets sticky with these ACC teams. SMU, I feel like this is too much. SMU has actually been good. Like, they are actually a good basketball team. 5 straight wins since they lost to Louisville. The problem SMU has, they have no high-end wins. Their best win is Pitt earlier in the week. And I don't think Pitt's really close to being an NCAA tournament caliber team at the moment. Yeah, we'll take the 8. We'll take the 8 with Wake. I think their defense is good enough to keep them in this game. There is an avenue where SMU blows them out because, again, the problem with Wake, their offense, just not strong enough, realistically speaking, to be a high-end team. We've seen that so far this year. All right, we're going to the Big West. UC San Diego, the Tritons, year 1 of NCAA tournament eligibility, and they are the best team in San Diego now. If they played San Diego State now, I actually think I'd take them. They played on opening night, and the Aztecs only won by 5 at Viejas. But that was before we knew how good this UC San Diego team is. They should be able to beat up on this UC Davis team because UC Davis can't score. Now, the question mark here, when you're facing a team that's got high-end defense, UC Davis does have a legit top 100 defense in the country. Will this be one of those grinders where it's a 134.5? If this game goes under, it's going to be hard to cover 14 points. It's going to be hard. But to be totally honest with everyone, a 65-50, 65-48, something in that pocket is very real in this game. So I actually like the big favorite with a low total here, 14, laid with UC San Diego. Tritons are legitimately good. If you see them, if they win the league, either, and this is the case if it's them or Irvine, if either of those two teams win the Big West tournament, by the way, just down the road from us in Henderson, at Lee's Family Forum, I would pick them in a matchup dependent in 12-5. As long as it's not like St. John's or Michigan State, and UC San Diego very much live in round 1. Speaking of Michigan State, They're on the road at Illinois. So Michigan State has lost 3 of 4. They had that ridiculous loss earlier in the week to Indiana at home. Now they go on the road to take on Illinois. These two teams met conference champion divisional weekend in the NFL. Michigan State won by 2. That was a weird steam game where if you got Illinois early, you covered. You got Michigan State late, you covered. The game that opened 4, closed 1.5, 2-point win for Michigan State. Now they go on the road to Champaign, where Illinois has been very inconsistent. They're a legitimate top 25 team to me. They're good, but they've been very inconsistent. They have won 2 in a row. They beat up on Minnesota and Minneapolis. They beat UCLA earlier this week in Champaign. This is too many points, though. It's too many points. I know Michigan State has not been right the last few games out, but this is too many points. This game should have been 4. Should have been 4, maybe even 3.5. Now that we're north of 6, easy. Actually, my favorite one of the day now in Michigan State, plus 6.5 on the Spartans. Kentucky and Texas. Check your injury reports. See who's out for Kentucky before you do anything here. It is a good spot for Texas. Kentucky off the win against Tennessee earlier in the week. Injuries galore, as we know, in that backcourt with Creases still out. Butler banged up, probably not playing again. Yeah, it's probably a good spot on Texas, but I just don't trust this team. I don't think they're that good. I don't think their offense is overly reliable. Stay off. Look at the injury report. See if Butler somehow ends up playing. Maybe you take a piece of Kentucky. Florida and South Carolina. Gamecocks had a good shot of beating Florida, actually. They had a lead late. Florida came back and won 14 in this game. Now in Gainesville, it would only be LA the favorite. Florida, by the way, with the final number 1 seed in the Lenardi bracket yesterday when it was revealed. Gators top 10 in both offense and defense. Right now in the country, there are only 3 teams that have top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Duke, Houston, and these Gators. Pretty good company for Florida right now on that. Number 4 in KenPom overall right now, ahead of Alabama, Tennessee. But it would only be a late of Gators here at 14. All right, now we go to the Kansas teams out in the state of Utah. We start in Provo, K-State at BYU. I thought K-State was reasonable at 6. It's now 7.5. I know this is a pretty dynamite spot to go against the Cats, who have been playing some excellent basketball. They played one of the ugliest games of the year earlier in the week against Arizona, a game that still featured 143 points despite only 3 combined three-pointers. You don't see that in 2025. But you know what? This K-State team, finally, the talent has started to show. BYU earlier in the week got a really good win against West Virginia on the road. I just think this is a tricky spot for BYU where they have to go cross-country back home. Yeah, they're at home. It's a lot of points, though, when the talent is pretty even. So I would take the 7.5 with K-State. If BYU blows them out, so be it. It would be a take of 7.5 with K-State in this one. To Moraga, Wazoo, St. Mary's, the market agreed with my sentiments last night. This opened 16. That was way too many. We're now down to 14.5. I still think it's too many. St. Mary's, to me, is still the best team in this conference. They're better than Gonzaga. They proved it on the court a few weeks ago. This is a lot of points in a total of 140. And this total also is a little bit higher than I would have expected, but Wazoo's going to want to run. The big question is always with Wazoo, can they get enough stops? That's been their issue this year. Their defense has let them down a lot. They finally snapped the 5-game losing streak. They beat Pepperdine last time out. They've had a whole week off. I think this game's played actually in single digits, so I do like Wazoo even at a worse number than last night, now at 14.5. San Diego State and Boise State at Viejas tonight. I like the home team. I don't buy this Boise State team. It's something about Leon Rice for whatever reason. I don't like his teams. I don't like how they play. They always feel like they're leaving meat on the bone. They've won 4 in a row, but Boise State's best win in conference is Nevada. They haven't beaten any good team, the higher end teams in conference play. Their only high-end win, they have 2 high-end wins. They beat Clemson They had that game, that random game at Boise. Very weird road trip for Clemson. And they beat St. Mary's in Idaho Falls. So basically a home game for Boise. But San Diego State, who's squarely on the bubble right now, they've had problems on offense. They had a monster comeback earlier in the week, down 17, come back and beat San Jose State. Now back at home, anything south of one possession is good. We'll lay the 2 with the Aztecs here. All right, 2 more before we get out of here. Kansas and Utah. Jayhawks are not your normal Jayhawks. It's 6.5. Oh, boy, I really would look at Utah, but I think that number's spot on at 6 or 6.5 right now. Just the big question mark in this game, will Utah be able to score enough on Kansas, who is still very good on defense, top 5 in the country? It would be a lean to Utah, but it's not as strong as the other ones. And then the last one, hey, you got a Hawaii game you can bet at the end of the night, guys. Hawaii and UC Irvine, they've been all over Hawaii in this game, which makes it nice for me. I don't know how Hawaii is going to score in this game. I don't know how they're going to score. The big question, of course, with Irvine. Now, Irvine, great defensively, 205th in the country in offense. Number 11 on defense. I'm a little bit surprised at the way this number has been bet. Hawaii's not going to score in this game. They're going to have really big problems scoring. Last time these teams played in the mainland at Irvine, I mean, Anteaters won 71-55 in a game that had 72 possessions. Hawaii in that game had a hearty 0.76 points per possession. I don't know how they're going to score. So this is a lay of UC Irvine. I think there's a weird move by the market here, down to 4.5 on this one with UC Irvine against Hawaii. All right, we ran them through. College hoops, hockey. No thoughts on the NBA All-Star game. Just telling you that. Then enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday. That's all I'll say on that. Alex White is here tomorrow at 9 a.m. She'll get you ready for the Sunday in college hoops. Maybe some NBA All-Star plays, maybe some hockey, and maybe some more from Alex White tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. right here on Sports by the Book. Family Matters in the back. And Drew Dog, thank you as always. I'm Jeff Parles. Big thanks to Jon Jansen as well for hanging out as well. Make sure you subscribe, both South Point Studio, Sports by the Book, Punchlines FN as well, all the family, and also Gun Racing as well, back this week. If you want thoughts on Daytona, there will be some tomorrow morning from Alex, but Gun Racing is available now. Jeff, Molly, Brendan Gunn, get you covered. Get you ready for the first big race of the year tomorrow in Daytona. We'll catch you next time. Sports by the Book at 9 a.m. I'm Jeff Parles. Good luck on all your plays, everyone.